Welcome to the Morning English Podcast. Listen, learn, and speak English daily.
Welcome in, everyone. We are so incredibly thrilled to have you joining us today.
Truly thrilled. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so to kick things off, I want to ask you to vividly picture a scenario. And it is a highly specific but universally recognized situation that I can almost guarantee you found yourself in before.
Oh, probably more times than you can count.
Right. And probably quite recently, too. So you're standing in the lobby of a high-rise building. You step into an elevator, and the heavy metal doors slide shut with that definitive echoing thud.
That awful thud. It seals you in.
Exactly. It's just you and one other person. Maybe it's a neighbor you recognize from the mailroom but don't actually know, or perhaps a coworker from a completely different department who you only ever see near the coffee machine.
Right. Someone you vaguely recognize but have zero context for.
Exactly. Or, if you prefer, picture yourself waiting at a suburban bus stop on a quiet, misty Tuesday morning. A stranger walks up and takes a position exactly 4 feet away from you, waiting for the exact same bus. In both of these micro-environments, there is a moment. You know the moment. That distinct, palpable, heavy second of silence.
Oh, it's a silence that actually carries a physical weight to it, doesn't it?
It really does.
You can almost feel the air pressure change in the room.
Yes. The air feels thick. You feel this slight creeping, almost biological pressure to say something. I mean, anything at all.
Just to prove you're not a statue.
Right. You just need to acknowledge that you are both living, breathing human beings sharing the same tiny physical space. But your brain starts racing. What on earth do you say?
You certainly can't ask this stranger about their deepest existential fears.
No, definitely not. And you can't ask them about their financial situation or, their political leanings. You need something completely safe. You need something effortless. You need
The weather.
the weather.
It truly is the ultimate social lifesaver. It is the universal toolkit we all instinctively reach for when the silence gets just a little too loud and our cortisol levels start to spike from the awkwardness of unacknowledged proximity.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today is to understand exactly why the weather is universally considered the ultimate form of small talk.
We aren't just going to skim the surface here.
No, we want to uncover how it acts as a crucial social bridge between people, and how, particularly if you are an English learner, mastering this seemingly simple vocabulary actually unlocks an immense, life-changing amount of confidence.
It's basically the absolute shortcut to navigating everyday life in the English-speaking world.
It really is. Now, the materials we're examining today are instructional resources designed specifically for English learners. We're talking vocabulary guides, conversational breakdowns, idioms, and even some real-world dialogue transcripts.
But we aren't here to just read you a vocabulary list.
Far from it.
Yeah. This is a brilliant topic to dive into from an analytical perspective, precisely because it's so easy to dismiss. On the surface, talking about the weather seems like the most trivial, mundane, throwaway topic imaginable.
Yeah, you might be sitting there thinking, why dedicate an entire deep dive to saying it's raining?
Exactly. But small talk about the weather is never actually about meteorology. It's about human connection. It's about evolutionary psychology. It's about signaling safety, friendliness, and a shared reality. When we look at these English learning materials, we aren't just looking at basic grammar rules. We are looking at the foundational blueprints of human social interaction.
I am absolutely fascinated by that phrase, signaling safety, because when you look at the research and the sociological data presented in our sources, it all traces back to a very primal human need.
It really does.
The text emphasizes right out of the gate that weather is a universal experience. Now, we all know that on a logical level, but when you stop and think about the sociological implications, it's incredibly powerful.
Because every single person on the planet, regardless of their cultural background, their age, their socioeconomic status, their profession, or their language proficiency.
They all experience the element.
Exactly. We all feel the sunshine. We all flinch when it's freezing cold. We all run for cover when it rains. It is the one single phenomenon happening to all of us at the exact same time.
Precisely. And that universality is the absolute key to why it functions so perfectly as a mechanism for small talk.
Because absolutely everyone is experiencing it. Absolutely no expertise is required to discuss it. I want to bring this back to that elevator scenario you painted earlier.
Okay, let's go back to the elevator.
If you try to break that heavy silence by starting a conversation with a stranger about, say, a recent sports game, You were taking a massive social gamble.
Oh, a huge gamble. I've actually done this. I once tried to break the ice with a guy in a coffee shop line by pointing at his hat and mentioning the local baseball team's terrible loss the night before.
Oh, no. How did that go?
Turns out, he didn't follow sports at all. He just liked the color of the hat.
Oh, that's brutal.
The look of utter confusion on his face, it somehow made the silence even worse than if I had just said nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You assumed a shared context that simply wasn't there. If you bring up a new critically acclaimed movie, they might not have seen it, and now you've made them feel slightly uninformed.
Right.
If you bring up politics or current events, well, we all know how rapidly that can become uncomfortable, volatile, or highly combative.
It's a minefield.
But the weather. The weather is the ultimate neutral ground. It is happening to both of you simultaneously, right outside that window. Because it requires no specialized knowledge, it becomes a completely safe topic.
It avoids all sensitive or controversial subjects by its very nature.
You don't have to worry about offending someone's deeply held beliefs by observing that it is currently drizzling.
It is the great equalizer. You could be standing next to a billionaire CEO or a college student or a retired school teacher, and if it's pouring rain, you are all just humans trying not to get wet.
That's a great way to put it.
You can look at each other, shake your umbrellas, and say, terrible weather today, and instantly you have agreed on something. You have found common ground.
And that brings up a really crucial concept that the language experts in our sources explicitly define. They call it the social bridge.
What's fascinating here is the mechanics of that social bridge, particularly when viewed through the lens of evolutionary psychology.
Right, because historically, when two human beings from different tribes or family groups encountered each other in a small space, silence was a threat.
Silence meant danger.
It meant the other person was observing you, potentially calculating a risk or sizing you up. So we developed verbal grooming small talk as an all-clear signal.
That is so interesting.
When you say something simple like, nice weather today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or it looks like it might rain later, you're not actually asking for a meteorological assessment.
No, you aren't asking the other person to check their phone and analyze the barometric pressure.
You are using those words as a tool. You are casting a line across that awkward, potentially threatening silence to build a bridge. You are verbally signaling, I acknowledge you, I am friendly, I am not a threat, and I am open to interaction.
It's the modern equivalent of showing your empty hands to prove you aren't holding a weapon. You are just holding an observation about the clouds.
That's exactly what it is.
These simple comments lower the social stakes. They create a comfortable baseline environment so that eventually deeper and more meaningful conversations can happen. It's like warming up before a heavy workout.
You don't just walk into a gym and try to deadlift 300 pounds cold.
You'd pull a muscle.
Yeah.
You do some light stretching first. Weather talk is the conversational stretching. It warms up the vocal cords, it establishes rhythm, and it tests the social dynamic.
And we have to acknowledge that this stretching carries immense cultural importance, which varies significantly depending on where you are in the world. Our sources make a specific, highly detailed mention of the United Kingdom.
Yes, the UK is famous for this.
Studies consistently show a massive percentage of British people regularly use the weather as their primary conversation topic when making small talk with strangers, neighbors, or coworkers. It is practically a national pastime.
But why is that? Why the UK specifically? I mean, obviously they have famously unpredictable weather, but is it just the maritime climate, or is there something deeper in the cultural DNA?
It is a perfect storm pun, entirely intended of geography and culture. Geographically, the UK sits at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, making its weather genuinely changeable and unpredictable from hour to hour.
So that provides a constant stream of new material.
Exactly. But culturally, it's about navigating high context versus low context social norms. In British culture, which historically places a very high premium on privacy, asking personal questions too quickly is considered incredibly intrusive and rude.
You don't ask a stranger what they do for a living right away.
Never. The weather provides an exquisitely polite entry point. It allows you to be sociable and friendly without crossing any boundaries of privacy. When a British person says, quite windy today, isn't it? They are fulfilling a complex social contract.
For an English learner entering that culture, understanding this unwritten sociological rule is arguably just as important as knowing the vocabulary itself.
I would argue it's even more important.
That makes so much sense. If you were in a place with completely predictable weather, say Southern California in July, where it's just sunny and 75 degrees every single day.
Weather actually loses its utility as a social bridge.
Because there's nothing to observe. Still sunny, yep, conversation over. In those places, small talk often shifts to things like traffic, which is their unpredictable daily struggle.
Right, traffic becomes the new weather.
But regardless of regional variations, this brings up a fantastic point for anyone trying to master the English language.
This raises an important question. How does an English learner actually leverage this cultural quirk to their advantage?
I am so glad you asked because the sources are adamant about this. They describe weather vocabulary as the ultimate sandbox for language learners. And I just love that metaphor.
Such a great visual.
Think about a literal sandbox. It is a defined, safe space. You can build sandcastles, you can knock them down, you can experiment, and if it all collapses, nobody gets hurt. There are no real-world consequences. Weather conversations are the low-stakes conversational sandbox.
To understand why this sandbox is so effective, we need to look briefly at the brain science of language acquisition. Linguists often talk about the affective filter hypothesis.
Okay, what is the affective filter?
Essentially, when a learner is anxious, stressed, or afraid of making a mistake, say, we're discussing a complex topic like politics or trying to explain a technical problem at work, their affective filter goes up.
It's like a mental block.
Literally. Their brain physically blocks the absorption and fluid recall of language because it is too busy managing the stress response.
They freeze up. The cognitive load is just too heavy. You're trying to remember the vocabulary, figure out the grammar, and make sure you don't say something socially inappropriate. It's exhausting.
It's exactly. But weather. The cognitive load of weather is incredibly low. The vocabulary is foundational. Sunny, rainy, windy, cloudy, hot, cold. These are short, punchy, universally understood concepts.
And because the social stakes are non-existent, the learner's affective filter drops.
The anxiety disappears. They can actually relax and focus purely on the mechanics of forming the sentence. It provides a psychologically safe environment to practice vocalizing the language.
And you get to practice it constantly. That's the beauty of it. The sources highlight the sheer frequency of use in real life.
You hear it everywhere.
If you are learning English, you want to invest your study time in topics that give you a high return on investment. If you spend 3 hours memorizing the vocabulary for deep-sea scuba diving equipment, you might use those words once a decade.
Unless you're a marine biologist.
Right. But if you learn weather vocabulary, you will hear it and use it today, tomorrow, and the next day. You hear it on the news, in podcasts, from the cashier at the grocery store, or from your Uber driver.
This frequency phenomenon is vital for developing listening comprehension. Because the topic comes up so ubiquitously, it provides a constant, reliable, ambient stream of input.
Every time you turn on a local radio station, there's a weather report.
Every time you listen to a casual interview, the host might complain about the sudden rain. This repetitive exposure trains the learner's ear to the natural rhythm, intonation, and cadence of native speakers.
You start to subconsciously absorb how a native speaker's voice drops in exasperation when they talk about a miserable, gray day.
Or how their pitch rises in enthusiasm when the sun finally comes out. It is a continuous practice session that requires zero extra effort to access.
And when you are ready to actually open your mouth and speak, weather is the absolute perfect playground for practicing your grammar. This is the part of the source material that just blew my mind because it's such a practical, genius hack for learners.
It really is a brilliant strategy.
Weather conversations are the absolute best way to practice your verb tenses in a way that feels totally natural. You don't feel like you are sitting at a desk doing a rigid textbook drill. You just feel like you are making casual conversation. Let's break it down.
Let's do it.
Say you want to practice the present continuous tense. You just look out the window right now and say, "It's raining." That's it. Perfect grammar, instantly applied to reality.
And then when you want to practice the simple past tense, you simply reference yesterday. It rained yesterday. Or it was very hot last week. We had a terrible storm last night.
You are seamlessly practicing regular verbs, irregular verbs, and state of being verbs.
All within a context that makes absolute logical sense to the listener.
And then you can jump to the future tense. It will rain tomorrow. Or if you are looking at a weather app, the forecast says it's going to be sunny.
Or maybe you aren't totally sure, so it's a great time to practice modals. It might snow tonight, or it could get windy.
You can cycle through the entire timeline of English grammar, past, present, future, and conditional, just by talking about what the sky is doing.
Which is why this is so empowering. By mastering this frequent, simple, grammatically flexible topic, a learner can navigate daily English life with significantly less anxiety.
It takes the panic right out of the daily routine.
When someone in the break room says, "How about this heat?" the learner won't experience that deer in the headlights panic. They will have an arsenal of simple, well-practiced responses ready to go.
They will know that they can say, yes, it was so hot yesterday too.
And they will know their past tense structure is flawless. Mastering the small talk sandbox gives you the conversational momentum and the self-esteem to tackle much more complex interactions as the day goes on.
But of course, to play in the sandbox, we need the sand. We need the raw materials. Let's dive deep into the actual language itself, the lexicon of weather.
The building blocks.
The source text outlines the basic vocabulary in a highly structured way. But rather than just listing words, it highlights a specific linguistic mechanic that I found incredibly satisfying. It's a simple rule, but it is so deeply embedded in English that native speakers don't even realize they're doing it.
Ah, yes. The T suffix rule.
Yes, it's so elegant.
This brings us to English morphology, which is just a fancy linguistic term for how words change their shape to change their meaning or function. English can be notoriously chaotic with its rules.
Very chaotic.
But the Inca suffix rule for weather is an incredibly elegant, predictable feature. The text points out that weather descriptions very frequently take a base noun and simply attach a p-way to the end to create the corresponding adjective.
It's like a linguistic magic trick. You take a noun, the physical thing itself, and you just attach that I sound to the end, and suddenly it becomes a description of the state of the world.
You take the word sun, you add a y, and you get sunny. The atmospheric experience of that star is light.
You take a cloud, add a y, and it's cloudy. Wind becomes windy, fog becomes foggy, rain becomes rainy, snow becomes snowy.
For a learner, finding a reliable pattern in English is like finding an oasis in a desert. Once you know the foundational noun, you automatically possess the adjective.
That predictability is rare, which makes it highly valuable. But the instructional materials we are analyzing don't just stop at those basic E adjectives. They push the learner to understand the nuances of how we describe these conditions.
Particularly when it comes to precipitation.
Yes, this is where a learner starts moving from basic functional proficiency to sounding truly natural and fluent. For example, the text draws a very deliberate, clear distinction between different intensities of rain.
Because let's be honest, rain is rarely just rain.
The text contrasts the phrase "it's drizzling" with "it's pouring." And this isn't just a vocabulary drill, this is a crucial real-world distinction.
It changes everything about how you plan your day.
If a coworker looks out the window and tells you it's drizzling, that specifically means light, misty rain. It informs your next action. You might not even need an umbrella. You can just pull your jacket hood up and make a quick dash to your car.
But if they say it's pouring, or as the text also phrases it, it's raining heavily, that paints a totally different operational picture.
You are going to get soaked to the bone. You need the heavy umbrella, the rain boots, the coat. Learning these highly specific verbs, drizzle versus pour, adds vital color and accuracy to everyday speech.
We see that exact same desire for descriptive color when the text discusses temperature. The sources make a deeply fabricating point here about human nature.
Oh, I love this part.
While you can use exact numbers, the text gives the examples the temperature is 20 degrees or it's about 5 degrees. Casual conversations rarely, if ever, stick to those numerical facts.
Numbers are clinical. They belong in a meteorological report or on a smartphone app.
Exactly. In human conversation, people crave extremes. They crave drama.
We really do. Nobody wants to just say, "It is cold." That's so boring. It doesn't convey any emotion. We want to emphasize our suffering or our absolute joy.
We want to connect over the shared extreme experience.
And the text provides these fantastic, dramatic phrases that native speakers use constantly. Instead of just saying it's very cold, people will shiver and say it's freezing.
Now, it might be 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside. It is not literally at the freezing point of water.
But we use the extreme word to express our subjective experience of extreme discomfort. Or instead of saying it's hot, we say it's boiling hot.
Again, your blood is not literally boiling. At least, I hope not.
Let's hope not. But the hyperbole conveys the intensity of the heat. And then there is it's below zero, which carries this heavy psychological weight of absolute, bitter, unforgiving cold.
Using these slightly exaggerated extreme phrases makes a learner sound exponentially more fluent and expressive.
It really does. It shows personality.
This dramatic expression ties directly into how we emotionally categorize the weather, and how that categorization dictates the direction of the small talk.
The sources note a very clear linguistic division between positive and negative associations in the weather lexicon.
When discussing sunny weather, the language provided is inherently uplifting and expansive. The text highlights expressions like, it's a beautiful sunny day, the sun is shining brightly, or it's warm and pleasant.
These descriptions naturally generate positive conversational momentum.
Exactly. Sunshine breeds optimism in small talk. The text gives a great example response to a sunny observation. Perfect weather for a picnic.
People literally smile when they talk about the sun. The body language opens up.
But when the weather turns bad, the language becomes much more defensive, contracted, and bracing.
If it's windy, the text gives the example, hold your hat. It's very windy outside. It's an action-oriented, slightly chaotic phrase.
Or with snow, the focus is immediately on the harsh reality. It's freezing, or the ground is covered with snow.
The specific vocabulary you choose to deploy instantly sets the emotional tone of the interaction. Are we collectively celebrating the sunshine, or are we mutually commiserating about the miserable cold?
And as sociologists will tell you, shared commiseration is an incredibly powerful bonding tool.
Complaining about a shared external hardship, like a terrible storm, unites people very quickly.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of how we initiate and navigate these conversations. Knowing the vocabulary in isolation is one thing, but knowing how to smoothly deploy it in a real-time, face-to-face interaction is another entirely.
The source text is highly practical here, outlining the most common initiating questions.
Yes, the openers, the keys to unlocking the social bridge.
The text gives us the absolute classics, the ones you should have memorized and ready to fire off at any moment. How's the weather today? And what's the weather like?
These are your bread and butter. You can ask these to the barista, the bus driver, your boss, anyone.
Or if you want to be a bit more observant, you can ask yes or no questions based on what you're physically experiencing. Is it raining outside, or is it hot today?
And my absolute personal favorite for keeping a conversation flowing is, do you think it will rain later?
I love that one because it asks for a prediction, an opinion, not just a static fact. It invites the other person to look at the sky, consider their own app's forecast, and talk a little bit more.
However, navigating these openers is also where language learners face some of their most significant and sometimes comical challenges. The text explicitly points out several common traps that English learners fall into when trying to participate in this specific brand of small talk.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the most common trap, and honestly the most endearing one mentioned in the sources, is the trap of being entirely too formal.
And when you think about it, it makes total logical sense why a learner would make this mistake.
You are studying hard, you are reading textbooks, you are memorizing sophisticated multi-syllable vocabulary words, and you naturally want to use them. You want to sound educated, precise, and fluent.
So instead of using the simple, culturally accepted small talk phrases, a learner might confidently walk up to someone and say something like, and this is the direct, hilarious example from the text, the meteorological conditions are pleasant today.
Or the equally jarring, the atmospheric conditions appear unstable.
I just love imagining someone saying that.
Picture standing at that bus stop we talked about earlier. The stranger steps up, looks you dead in the eye, and says, "Excuse me, neighbor, but the atmospheric conditions appear unstable."
It sounds like you are a robot or a scientist reading a digital readout on the bridge of a spaceship.
Grammatically, it is flawless.
Right.
Vocabulary-wise, it shows a very advanced level of English. But in a social setting, it completely fails the fundamental purpose of small talk.
It fails because, as we establish, small talk is about signaling intimacy, safety, and relatability, not academic precision.
When you use overly formal clinical language like meteorological conditions, you are accidentally creating an intellectual distance between yourself and the listener.
You are making the interaction heavier, colder, and more complex than it needs to be. The text playfully but firmly contrasts this with what native speakers actually say in the real world.
Instead of the robotic, the meteorological conditions are pleasant today, a native speaker simply smiles and says, "It's a nice day today."
Instead of the academic, the atmospheric conditions appear unstable. They squint at the clouds and say, looks like rain.
The ultimate goal here is brevity, warmth, and casual ease. Keep it simple, keep it casual, don't overthink it.
Now, besides the formality trap, there's a very specific, highly technical grammatical pitfall the text highlights. And this is a mistake almost every single learner makes at some point.
Why? Because logically, the mistake makes more sense than the actual English rule. It is what the text categorizes as mistake 1, using the phrase, "the weather is."
This is a crucial grammatical nuance to understand. A learner, often translating directly from the syntax of their native language, will frequently say, the weather is sunny.
Or even more directly translated, they might say, it is rain, missing the adjective form entirely.
But let's focus on the weather is sunny. While it is perfectly understandable and gets the point across, it sounds inherently unnatural and clunky to a native English ear. The correct natural phrasing relies on a linguistic concept known as a dummy pronoun.
A dummy pronoun. That sounds like an insult to the word.
It does, but it serves a vital structural purpose. Languages like Spanish or Italian are what linguists call pro-drop languages. If it's rainy in Spanish, you can just say llueve, just the verb. The subject is implied.
But English is a rigidly subject-verb-object language. A sentence must have a subject even when nature doesn't provide one.
Who is doing the raining? The sky, the clouds, the universe.
English solves this problem by inserting a meaningless placeholder subject, the dummy pronoun it.
So the text explicitly states the rule. English almost exclusively uses it is when describing current weather conditions. You don't say the weather is sunny, you simply say it is sunny. You don't say the weather is rainy, you say it is rainy.
The word it is doing so much heavy lifting there. It means nothing and everything all at once. You just have to trust the it. It is hot, it is cold, it is snowing.
And the text gives another huge, highly practical tip for sounding natural, which builds right on top of this. It is rule. To sound truly authentic, to really nail the rhythm of English, you need to use contractions.
Absolutely. The text instructs learners to actively avoid enunciating. It is raining with clear, separated syllables.
Let's demonstrate the difference. If you say, it is, rain, ing, it sounds stilted and robotic. The phonetic rhythm is too sharp.
Instead, use the contraction, it's raining, it's sunny, it's cold.
Combining those words smoothly mimics the natural rolling rhythm and speed of native speech. Furthermore, the text encourages the use of short, almost fragmented phrases in casual settings.
You don't always need a full, perfectly structured subject-verb-object sentence to communicate effectively.
As the text examples show, you can just gesture to the sky and say, nice day, or pretty cold today, or looks like rain.
Dropping the formal sentence structure entirely, ironically, is the ultimate sign of conversational fluency and comfort.
It shows you are relaxed in the language. You aren't trying too hard to prove you know the grammar. You are just sharing a human observation.
Okay, I am so incredibly excited to move into the next phase of our deep dive because we are finally leaving the literal atmospheric weather behind and entering the wild, fascinating world of metaphor.
The text notes that English possesses a massive volume of idioms directly related to weather.
And this proves just how deeply weather is ingrained in the cultural psyche of English speakers. We don't just talk about the weather to break the ice, we use the weather to describe our physical health, our emotional states, and our entire worldview.
Idioms are essentially the cultural shorthand of a language. They are fixed phrases where the literal meaning of the individual words does absolutely not match the figurative meaning of the phrase as a whole.
And because the experience of weather is universal, it provides the perfect, universally understood imagery for explaining highly complex, abstract human situations.
The text provides 4 specific, highly common weather idioms for us to analyze. Let's break down the literal imagery versus the historical metaphor of each one.
Let's do it. First up, the absolute, undeniable classic of English idioms. It's raining cats and dogs.
Oh, yes.
Now, the literal meaning of this is absolutely terrifying. You picture literal felines and canines plummeting from the sky.
But the meaning provided in the text is simply heavy rain. So if you look out the window and it is an absolute downpour, you turn to your friend and say, wow, it's raining cats and dogs outside.
It's just a fun, quirky way to describe a massive storm. But where on earth did that come from?
The etymology of raining cats and dogs is heavily debated by linguists, which makes it fascinating. Some believe it comes from the Greek word katadoub, which means waterfall. Over time, katadoub morphed into cats and dogs.
That's a bit of a stretch, but okay.
Others point to Norse mythology, where dogs and wolves were associated with Odin, the god of storms, and cats were associated with witches who supposedly rode the wind.
But there's a more grounded theory, isn't there?
Yes. The most grounded, albeit slightly grim, theory relates to 17th century London. The streets had terrible drainage. During torrential downpours, the streets would flood so severely that the bodies of stray cats and dogs would wash down the streets, making it look as though it had literally rained animals. Jonathan Swift even wrote a famous poem about it in 1710.
Wow! That is incredibly grim, but it makes so much historical sense. You go from 17th century street floods to a cute phrase we use today.
Language is wild.
It really is. The second idiom shifts the focus from the external world to our internal physical state. The phrase is under the weather.
The text defines its meaning very simply as feeling sick. The example sentence is, I'm feeling under the weather today.
What's fascinating here is how our physical well-being is inextricably linguistically linked to weather terminology.
The imagery suggests that the harsh, oppressive elements of the weather have physically pressed down upon you, making you feel unwell.
The origin of this one is nautical, right?
Exactly. In the days of sailing ships, if a sailor was feeling seasick or ill, they would be sent below deck, quite literally under the weather, to protect them from the harsh winds and storms above.
Today, it serves as a very gentle, polite, socially acceptable way to say you are ill without having to give your coworkers graphic, uncomfortable details about your symptoms.
All right, you don't walk into the office and say, I have a terrible stomach ache and a fever and I was up all night. You just quietly say, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today.
And everyone instantly understands you need some space and some rest. Okay, the third idiom is much more philosophical and probably my favorite. Every cloud has a silver lining.
The text defines the meaning as, every bad situation has something positive. The example given is, don't worry about losing that job. Every cloud has a silver lining.
This is a profound metaphor for human optimism. The imagery is beautifully stark. You picture a dark, ominous gray cloud blocking the sun, representing the bad situation, the grief, or the failure.
But around the very edges of that dark cloud, you can physically see the brilliant light of the sun shining through from behind, creating a bright, silver glowing edge, the silver lining.
It implies that the darkness is temporary and the light is still there. Its origins actually trace back to John Milton's 1634 poem Comus, where he talks about a sable cloud turning forth her silver lining on the night.
That is just gorgeous. From a 1600s poem straight into modern daily conversation.
And the final idiom the text provides is head in the clouds. The meaning given is not paying attention or being unrealistic. The example is, he always has his head in the clouds.
If you imagine someone whose physical head is literally miles up in the atmosphere, inside a cloud, they can't possibly see what is happening on the solid ground right in front of their feet.
They are totally disconnected from reality, daydreaming, or distracted by fantasy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, why are idioms like these so vitally important for an English learner? Why does an instructional text include complex 17th century nautical metaphors in a basic lesson about small talk?
Because mastering these idioms allows a learner to fundamentally level up their conversational ability. You move beyond just literal observational weather tracking. It is raining, it is sunny, into the realm of expressing complex emotions, offering deep comfort, and describing abstract situations.
When you can look at a friend who just had a terrible, heartbreaking day and tell them, I know it's hard, but every cloud has a silver lining, you aren't just making small talk anymore. You're providing real emotional support using the deeply ingrained cultural shorthand of the English language. You are truly connecting on a human level.
That connection is the ultimate goal of language learning, isn't it? And that brings us to the final and arguably most practical phase of our deep dive.
The real-world simulations.
The source text doesn't just leave us with the theory, the grammar, and the idioms. It walks us through specific conversational case studies to demonstrate exactly how this social bridge works in practice, complete with the microdynamics of human interaction.
Let's really analyze these interactions phase by phase and look at what is happening beneath the surface. Let's examine conversation 1 from the text. At a bus stop, we have person A and person B, who we can assume are strangers.
Person A initiates. Cold morning today, isn't it? Person B replies, yes, it's freezing.
Person A then says, I think it might snow later. And person B finishes with, that would be nice.
It is incredibly brief, but structurally, there is so much happening here. Person A casts the social line with what we call a tag question, isn't it? A tag question practically begs for agreement. It makes it very easy for the other person to respond.
Person B accepts the invitation and immediately escalates the emotion, using one of those extreme dramatic words we discussed earlier, freezing. This is mutual commiseration. They're instantly bonding over the shared physical discomfort of being cold.
And notice how they pivot. Once the baseline of agreement is established, person A pivots from observing the present to forecasting the future, might snow. And person B concludes with a positive shared sentiment, that would be nice.
What if person B had just grunted or just said, yeah? The bridge would have failed. But because they played the game, in just 4 short sentences, 2 complete strangers standing in the cold have established a friendly, shared reality. They are no longer threats to each other. They are allies against the cold.
Precisely. Now let's contrast those microdynamics with conversation 2. At the office.
Person A. beautiful weather today. Person B, yes, perfect for going outside. Person A, maybe you should go for lunch outside. Person B, great idea.
Notice the distinct shift in utility here. In the bus stop scenario, the conversation was purely for establishing social safety and bonding. In the office scenario, the weather observation is weaponized in a polite way to suggest a specific action.
The positive weather observation, beautiful weather today, creates a psychologically positive opening for a proposal. Maybe we could go for lunch outside. The weather serves as a polite, low-pressure pretext for an invitation.
It is so smooth. You don't just walk up to a coworker's desk out of nowhere and abruptly command, "Eat lunch with me." That's aggressive.
No.
You let the beautiful weather do the asking for you. It softens the invitation.
And then there is conversation 3, talking with a neighbor. Person A, looks like rain today. Person B, yes, the sky is very dark. Person A, I hope it stops before evening. Person B, me too.
This one is entirely about shared hopes and maintaining neighborhood harmony. They observe the negative atmospheric signs together. The sky is very dark, but then they look forward to a better outcome. Hope it stops.
When person B says me too, it is a tiny, validating moment of solidarity with the person living next door to you. It maintains the peace.
These 3 distinct scenarios perfectly illustrate the incredible versatility of weather talk. It neutralizes the threat of strangers, it smoothly facilitates invitations among colleagues, and it maintains peaceful harmony with neighbors.
But our source material actually provides one final extended meta example that perfectly encapsulates everything we've analyzed today.
Oh, this is the best part. Our sources include a transcript and a detailed audio description from a show called The Morning English Podcast, hosted by 2 people named Mark and Emma. And what's brilliant is how the text sets the scene for their dialogue.
The hosts, Mark and Emma, are recording outside in a private garden. The birds are softly chirping, there's fresh sunlight falling around them, and the atmosphere is explicitly described as calm, warm, and relaxing.
It is designed to be this incredibly calming, low-anxiety environment for the listener, the ultimate low-stakes sandbox.
It is a masterclass in lowering that affective filter we discussed earlier. Emma asks the classic textbook opening question. So, Mark, how's the weather today?
Mark replies with a flawless present tense description that utilizes the Ta-Nehisi rule we learned. It's sunny and warm. Perfect morning.
Then Emma immediately shifts the grammatical gears to the past tense to create contrast and keep the conversation moving. That sounds great. But yesterday it was raining all day. Mark agrees, noting how fast the weather changes.
What I love about this dialogue is how it models expressing personal preferences while maintaining harmony. Emma asks, do you prefer sunny or rainy weather? Mark responds, I prefer sunny weather. It makes me feel more energetic.
And here's the crucial part for social bonding. Emma validates his feeling instantly with, same here. Sunshine always improves my mood.
That phrase, same here, is the linguistic glue of the social bridge.
This entire extended dialogue from Mark and Emma is a perfect encapsulation of the deep dive. It uses the simple openers, it naturally cycles through past and present tenses, it completely avoids the overly formal meteorological language, and it creates a genuinely friendly, relatable interaction.
It shows the learner not just what words to say, but exactly what a successful, natural, warm English conversation feels like.
So what does this all mean? We have gone on an incredible journey today.
We really have. We've explored the evolutionary psychology of the elevator silence, the grammar of dummy pronouns, the grim 17th century origins of raining cats and dogs, and the microdynamics of bus stop negotiations.
Let's bring it all together. The ultimate takeaway from our deep dive today and from these incredibly rich source materials we've analyzed is that talking about the weather is never, ever really about the weather.
It is a profound, universal tool for human connection. It is a completely safe, low-anxiety space for you as an English learner to practice your pronunciation, test your verb tenses, and build your confidence.
It is the absolute simplest, most effective, and most historically proven way to break the ice in literally any situation.
And that is the absolute most important thing for you to remember as you go about your day. Memorizing these simple phrases, mastering the elegant simplicity of the high-C suffix, trusting your it is dummy pronouns, and deliberately avoiding a trap of sounding like an academic meteorologist, these are not just rote vocabulary drills.
They are massive practical steps toward becoming a genuinely confident, fluent English speaker. By embracing this seemingly mundane topic, you are learning how to actively turn awkward silences into opportunities for human connection. You are mastering the unwritten social rules of the English-speaking world.
You are building social bridges, and it truly doesn't matter if it's raining cats and dogs outside, or if you are boiling hot or absolutely freezing cold. You now have the linguistic tools and the sociological understanding to handle it with grace.
Before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to ponder. We all check the weather forecast.
Every single morning, we look at our phones to see if it's going to rain or what the exact temperature will be.
But tomorrow morning, when you check that forecast, I want you to consider this. You aren't just looking up what jacket to wear or whether you need to bring an umbrella to the office.
You are actually looking up your conversational opening lines for the rest of the day. You are gathering the raw, essential materials for your social interactions.
Every passing dark cloud, every sudden cool breeze, every brilliant ray of sunshine is a fresh opportunity to cast a line and build a new connection.
I absolutely love that perspective. The forecast is literally your script for the day. So the only question left is, what social bridges will the weather help you build today? Go out there, observe the sky, and start a conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.